hi, I'm Sherby. I have a bachelor's degree, well, kinda, in creative writing. And now this does not make me an expert. I would never classify myself as an expert in writing or anything related to writing. But I do think this education and passion of mine in writing allows me insight into things that people might not always consider, or maybe you have considered but you never really knew how to put into words, which is why I'm here. So if anything, I hope you guys can find this video interesting. And I also want to apologize if my mic is doing anything weird or stuff like that. It's a clip-on mic, and I'm literally holding it with a bobby pin, so we work with what we got. Alright, before we get into the video, I just want to give a quick disclaimer. This video isn't quite a critique or even a proper review because I'm going to be completely biased to this show. I just wanted to make a video about why I love this anime so freaking much. I'm not really doing this to provide an objective point of view. It's literally just my opinion and why I think it's a good show. However, with future videos, I do want to be more objective and give more of a review and critique, but I really wanted to start this channel off with something positive, so I thought this was a good place to start. If you're looking for some kind of overview of the show or even just a plot analysis, you're not going to get that in this video, unfortunately, because I really, really, really highly recommend this show and I think it is something people should experience, so I want to avoid giving as many spoilers as possible. With that, let's get into it, I guess. So I think that I should start just by saying how I got into this show in the first place, because I think it's really, really random. So I swim in my spare time, like a lot. I got into swimming because I wanted to lose weight, as you do, and just be healthy. And because of all this swimming and not really being conscious of anything, I ended up with swimmer's ear, which is an ear infection, and it's not fun. Highly would recommend you trying that out. So I went to the doctor and gave me medication, and I was told I wasn't allowed to swim for 7 days. So while I was in pain and very, 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 very uncomfortable, I really, really wanted a show that would take me away from that, which is when I stumbled upon Mushi-shi while scrolling Anime Lab. I had no idea what Mushi-shi was about. Didn't even know what its name was. I only really chose it because of the protagonist that I saw on the cover of the, I think, promo art. Because I kind of recognized him. I'd seen him somewhere before, and I was like, oh, okay, like, this seems interesting. So that's how I ended up watching and falling down into the Mushi-shi hole. Now, I'm not really going to talk a lot about the background too much for Mushi-shi, but I'll mention that it was originally a manga by Yuki Urashibara. I hope I pronounced that right. It was published around 1999 to 2008, and it is a manga I am still currently trying to get my hands on. But so far, it just seems to be ridiculously expensive. But who knows, maybe one day I will make that plunge when I am not a broke uni student. So the story of Mushi-shi basically follows our protagonist known as Ginko, who is a Mushi-shi. And if you're wondering what that is someone that studies and works with Mushi. Wow, no shit, Sophie. Their Mushi are basically magical entities that are neither animal, plant, or human, but they're kind of something in between. It's explained a lot better in the show, okay? Don't kill me. So each episode is episodic, with each one focusing on a new mystery and a new story involving a new Mushi, or sometimes a revisited Mushi, and how Ginkgo, our Mushi-shi, deals with them and how they affect the people or town that the Mushi are inhabiting. Now, when I first started getting into this series, I did want to see if anyone else was watching it, how popular it was. And one of the times I did look it up on YouTube, I literally only saw one other video on it by Beyond Ghibli, a video that I really, really enjoyed, and I suggest you guys go watch it because it's definitely better than this already. I can tell you as I'm recording this that it will be better than this. And he talks about the unique ambience that this show has, and I think it's a really, really good point, and I will be mentioning it in this video quite a bit. I was surprised for an anime that came out like, I don't know, almost 20 years ago, but for an oldish anime that no one is really talking about it when it was doing so many things that I really do believe are amazing and unique that I just have not seen before. And I think the best way to describe this show is it's filled with all the whimsy and magic of a Ghibli film, but stretched out longer, and you aren't given the chance to really connect with these characters that are all shown. However, I believe that to be what makes the show strong. Mushishi's genre is classified as mystery, slice of life, fantasy, historical, and supernatural, and it definitely falls into all of these categories. However, I think at the same time, it does so many things that you aren't expecting it to do. And that is all reflected through its tone, which I believe is probably the strongest point of the show and the, well, I guess, selling point. Some points from Beyond the Ghibli's video that I really liked he's mentioned was describing Mushi-shi as wholesome horror, bittersweet, tales of loss and hope, and the follies of man versus nature. And these all perfectly encapsulate the tone that defines Mushi-shi. When you first watch Mushi-shi, I think immediately at the first episode you will notice it is eerily calm. And Beyond the Ghibli's video dedicated an entire video as to this, talking about why it is so calm. So I'm not really going to go into that, but it is definitely the main reason I watch the show is because of the way it makes me feel. Despite dealing with some really dark, warped, twisted situations and honestly like body horror and even like just horror in general, like the sublime and ideas of these ridiculous things that are so difficult to comprehend, it's never scary, at least scary enough like that you would call it a horror. It can make you uneasy, but you never feel like you're in danger. And like I said, Beyond Ghibli's video really, really explains that part really well. So I'm not going to dwell on it too much. So please go check it out. But our protagonist's presence, Ginkgo, and everything else about the show just delivers this overwhelming calmness to you as a viewer. And it's just, I found it very addictive. And maybe that's because we live in a really, really hectic kind of society. Even when things weren't working out for Ginkgo and the characters, and trust me when I say that most of these episodes end not happily, you never felt lost in this kind of hopelessness, or you never felt like you were despairing, even though some endings, if it was more grounded, you would feel that way. But you never felt that way in Mushi-shi. And I think it's because of the way the viewer isn't really fully pulled in and fully connected to these characters. You're a bit more objective. So it is eerily calming. In a way I would describe only as peace. That's a feeling I only get, hence why I gave it the Studio Ghibli kind of vibe, because you feel that weird calm in between moments, like how Ghibli will dwell on a moment that isn't really significant, but it gives you that pleasure. And Mushi-shi does just that. Because you feel like a bystander, like Ginkgo, except I would even take it further and say you feel like a part of nature, just watching these stories unfold in front of you and the course of nature over time with these mushi and the balancing act that Ginkgo has to tiptoe. And I think this is an aspect of the show that it really utilizes to its fullest potential, and that is why it is so fantastic. Regarding Mushi-shi's setting, I really don't think there's too much that needs to be said, but it really does speak for itself when you watch the show. There was something hypnotic about watching these people that live a very different life from me in a very different time from my own in Edo, Japan, a time that, as an Australian, I don't know anything about really. So seeing these people going about their everyday tasks, plus dealing with these really bizarre situations and creatures, added to that strange calm, because you see them farming, doing basic things, getting water, etc., etc. And that was that slice of life essence, was those big still moments in between the bizarre, mysterious ones. It's that whole hypnotic, captivating world that Mushi-shi is painting for you. Now, while I was reading the reviews of Mushi-shi on my anime list, I noticed a common trend when people were giving their review was people tend to criticize the fact that the characters are somewhat forgettable and you'd never really get to know them, which this seemed to be the main reoccurring critique, quote unquote, of the show. Now, I can understand why a lot of people would find this as a negative. I think we're so used to watching shows where you spend time with the same characters and get to know them over a set amount of episodes, that when Mushi-shi doesn't do that, it can be quite jarring and can be quite unsettling. It can be like, this must be wrong because no one else is doing it. Sorry, the crows are awake, it seems. I, however, think that this was a strength of Mushi-shi, was its characters' lack of characterization. But I wouldn't even call it that, because I do still believe that there was characterization going on. So when you're watching Mushi-shi, you'll notice over the course of the episodes that no one sticks around, or at least very rarely. There's, I think, two reoccurring characters, and the main one that always comes around is Additioner Sensei. The reason for this is that Ginkgo is constantly needing to move, which generates the pacing of the show because Ginkgo, I don't really want to get into it too much, but he attracts Mushi, and that is why he can't stay in one place because he, you know, they'll start coming. So he'll go, and then you'll see maybe later on the episode he'll come back in a year's time to a year or so's time to that same house or client, and see how they're doing and get an update on that. But you never see the same characters twice, really. So I can definitely see why people might not like this. People like familiarity, but to me, it is a stylistic choice and also a thematic and narrative choice that just makes sense, and this works in favor for Mushi-shi. And regarding the criticism that Ginkgo himself is mysterious, and you never really know him apart from 2 or 3 episodes dedicated to his backstory, I don't necessarily see how this is a bad thing, because Ginkgo himself, our protagonist, is just a bystander. His backstory, it's not necessary to the story because he's investigating other people. It's about him learning about the others and the Mushi. We don't need to know what really his life story is. I'd like to, but you don't need to. It's not essential. And what you do learn about him is relevant to what is going to happen in the future and what you're learning currently. That makes sense. I don't know. But in a way, I think Ginkgo is a good reflection of the Mushi themselves. He's always there, but never quite fully understood, and almost blends in with nature in a way because he doesn't really do anything to really disrupt the balance. These characters that are quite forgettable, I guess, quote unquote, but their stories are memorable. You remember the story. You don't necessarily remember their personalities, but you remember the stories connected to them. I guess you could interpret this as dehumanizing to these characters because you are removing their identity and it's converging with the stories. But I don't think that's the case. I think the relationships between the characters is always done so beautifully that it gives them enough identity to carry the story. And almost every episode, there is a relationship between characters that's some form of love or hate, something human. Regarding their motivations, I think the characters' motivations are all believable when Ginkgo comes to them. A lot of them sometimes don't listen to him, some of them do. And you can believe why. It's not like some shows where you watch it and they just don't listen and you think, why the hell wouldn't you listen to them? You can believe every single character's motivations and choices in this show. And to me, that doesn't mean they're dehumanized. That just goes against that argument. I think it shows that they're characterizing, that they're unique individual people that I can understand because I side with them, or I don't necessarily agree with what they're doing, but I can understand why they're doing it and why they're making the choices they make, even when it ends heart-wrenchingly. And I think that the reason they did this and why it's done so well is because Mushi-shi is dealing with creatures that aren't real and I guess vaguely connected to Japanese yokai, but even then this is like pretty much original content. So to help balance and counter this unrealistic material, they need characters that are believable to carry the story. Because if the characters were just ridiculous and out of this world and difficult to understand, and then there's Mushi are difficult to understand, I feel like the show wouldn't be as successful. Now, this is just kind of a random point, but I didn't really know where to put it. The sound design in Mushi-shi is probably one of my top favorite things. One good episode is, I think, the second, third episode, where it is about sound, and oh my god, the amount of tingles I got. If you have ASMR, the tingles, the relaxation is real. Like, it was just so relaxing. So to recap, Mushi-shi is a series unlike anything else out there, and is something that I truly believe deserves more attention in a world filled with shows and media that often blends together. Mushi-shi stands out, and it stands alone. If you're looking for something unlike anything or any show you've ever seen before, then watch Mushi-shi. Its episodes will leave you in a state of contemplation, and despite its sad material at times, you'll never feel overwhelmed by emotion or sadness, but you'll always be left feeling accepting, contemplative, pensive, wary. So watch it, please. An episode or two a day, or even less, is the way to go. I think Beyond Ghibli said the same thing. It's not a show you can binge watch. It's definitely something I would recommend taking your time with and just pacing yourself because that's how it was designed to be enjoyed. And those are all my reasons why Mushi-shi is one of my favorite animes. And I hope you enjoyed the video and will give it a chance. So check it out. I just want to say a quick thank you to my good friend Kiyomi Kana for making the art for this video. Her links are in the description, so go check her out. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. Feel free to subscribe if you want to see more content like this. And comment if there's anything else you'd like to hear me talk about or discuss. So, bye-bye.